This video is going to be about coaching for a resource-based economy. I've been watching several dozen videos of people explaining why they advocate the Zeitgeist movement, and it has shown me a different view of myself. It is as though I was born into a community of jugglers, in which I'm not remarkable, but I've just met a bunch of people who cannot reliably hold a teacup. In my naivety, I've always assumed that people who weren't clever with resources just had other interests, and lacked my angst about it. Now I've heard a bunch of them tell me it isn't so. This video, or maybe a series of videos, is going to be my attempt to explain how I manage my personal resource situation. If I seem to be taking some skill or subtle awareness for granted and don't seem to notice, then leave a remark about it below for use in another video. So the basic rule in my life is that anything that can be casually labeled a resource is solely for technical use, not for emotional gesturing or catharsis of any kind. I imagine that many of you will scold me for saying so. Many emotionally evocative matters in your life cry out for some resource application or remediation. This is a guy in the rain. But I say no, it just seems that way. Emotion is actually always a drive toward intimacy with somebody else, into some kind of majestic portrayal of feeling. I really don't think it has anything directly to do with economics in the same world. For example, all my life I've had a serious abhorrence of cigarette smoke or air pollution of any kind. But in 1987, I met a woman who was as nice as Antache. And she smoked a pack a day and drove everywhere. So now I insist that emotion is very flexible. She became a magical lover who inspired all sorts of insane alteration of my normal relation to resources, until she died last October. But I still get grim about air pollution. It has become a measure of how lonely I am on a particular day. I don't have a driver's license or a wood stove, and on a nice day, that is expressive enough of my feeling about polluting. So the goal, I would say, is to have a nice day, to cheer up. That was illustrated to me most graphically in Ethiopia. Virtually all the people in the tiny town where I lived lived in tiny mud houses with no roof or glass in the window holes. They ate only boiled wheat, and little of that, and every one of them had at least one housefly walking on their face at all times. And they all looked at me with a striking look of compassion that I had never seen in America. All of them did. They were not lonely at all. They were having a nice day, and they were struck by my homesick appearance and my complete inability to speak Amharic. And I don't doubt that at the time, the economy in their town was getting slightly more robust due to the irrigation project that my father was working on, and to some degree, I symbolized that. So someone content with a fly on their face symbolizes ultimate ease to me. And the dire media depiction of places like Ethiopia seem a little biased, like the whole story is not really being recognized. What I, and I think everybody actually needs, is to wake up every morning feeling in love with the day, do whatever strange conjuring that requires. My girlfriend's death framed a huge shift in feelings in my material world. She had a lot of stuff and projects that really mattered to her a lot. This is her room. But what she spoke about was always the current incremental change, not the absolute condition of any of it. A little bit of what she could define as progress would totally cheer her up. In her absence, a lot of her stuff has become an empty stage with no players to use it. So I like the reminder of her. I slowly give it away. All of the sense of urgency has drained out of it. She has gone on to whatever is next and left the sandbox of my world for other people's imaginations and feelings, with all definitions redrawn or erased entirely. My success with her was not about a bunch of physical things or project. It was how she got me to greeting the day. The world was her oyster, as she put it, a place to conjure feelings, not a place to numb it out or totally depend on someone else's conjuring. She would cope with a kid crying by upstaging their tragedy with something that delighted them. This always had to involve the human sharing. The kids in my life are pretty unreasonably sane in that way, that no prize is a delight in a social vacuum. I can delight in sharing with imaginary friends, and they make forays into that. But it is quite suboptimal and a high risk of going sour. The main game is to constantly seek the real stage of life. The portrayal that has actual other players in it, adding their own amazing twist to what plays out. Thus, the real challenge that shows brilliantly in kids' lives is that kind of interaction with the people directly in the game is critical. Is the root of being alive. And kindness can get very puzzling to manage. It can even become a basis for hopelessness. This, I think, is what the Ethiopians had on the ball. They knew how to conjure kindness, they knew how to avoid killing it, and they knew how to cope with someone choreographing an emotional train wreck. So, I'm saying that the main skill in personal money management is learning how to be brilliantly intimate with some other people. I'm saying that the angst about having to go to work, about the stories of hardship in the slums, about pining for a trip to Europe, is rooted in direct, simple loneliness. I'm saying that being in love with at least 5 other direct physical intimates is more critical than vitamin C. And managing that will result in a genuine feeling of enough. The personal feeling of enough is the real test. In my view, if I wake up some morning looking at only possibilities and not brush fires, it is never because of a resource change. It's all in my head. Somebody I love is waiting for me to wake up. And that's part 1 in an attempt to present some coaching for a resource-based economy.